How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the third installment of the Stupid Questions podcast. I'm Seth Hill, and today we're going to be having Jackson Laundry on the podcast, who is a professional triathlete. He is ranked number 25 in the world, according to the Professional Triathlete Organization. And today we just have a candid conversation about his journey, how he got into the sport, a little bit of his running background, his crash in 2019 that rendered his shoulder useless for a bit, just a little bit of his plans in the future, some new and up-and-coming science in the world of triathlon. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jackson Laundry. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I already started recording, but I'll do like an intro and outro stuff that I'll record post and go from there. So we'll kind of just jump into it. I think it works really good because I don't know you super well, so I'll be able to ask a lot of genuine questions from an ignorant place. So
That sounds good, man.
yeah, sweet.
All right.
Welcome to the Stupid Questions podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to just jump on and even though this thing would be the second episode aired, or no, excuse me, third episode aired. Um, Before we have a lot of clout, really appreciate you jumping on. So it's really cool.
Of course, yeah.
So I guess to start off, just for myself and the listeners, like if you were gonna tell someone who Jackson Laundry is from the third person, like who are you? How old is he? Where's he from? How did he get to where he is today?
Well, where do we start? Well, I'm
Birth.
turning 30 in like a week, so basically 30 probably when this airs. Um, I grew up in Belleville, Ontario, pretty small town. Not super small town, but pretty small. Kind of just love sports always growing up, played every sport, hockey, of course, especially because
Mm-hmm.
it's Canada, and went to as competitive as a level as I could with every sport I could, and I just had a ton of energy and always needed to be doing something physical. And then I kind of started finding endurance sports a little bit more like in high school. Like you do the cross country meet and whatnot in grade school, and but you never really
Uh-huh.
trained and stuff. But I was reasonably good at those, but nothing too crazy. And then in high school, I started training a little bit and did some triathlons. I actually did my first triathlon when I was 10, in in
Nice.
in my hometown, and I kind of did one per year, like the kids race every year, and just sort of did it, but never really trained, or just like every other sport, I just kind of did as much as I could. Um, and then yeah, I started training a little bit. My dad and I just signed up for a race when I was maybe about 15. We started training for some sprint tries and stuff,
Oh,
and doing a little bit more swimming and that kind of thing. And then when I was about 17, I got a coach for a year, and I was like, okay, my goal is to do an Olympic try, and I did that, and that went all right. And then I went to University of Guelph, and sort of didn't really train much in my first year of university, but then kind of in the summer qualified for age group worlds, and went and
nice.
did those for a couple years. And I got a coach named Jame Loaring for Team LPC here in Ontario, and I started kind of actually training and taking it seriously. And
Yeah.
uh, kind of ever since then, I've just been kind of trying to get better all the time, and gradually went into the pro team. And I was kind of probably my first pro race 2014, went more into it in 2015, 16, and then did my first
Nice.
70.3 in 2017, and that's where I started seeing more success, where kind of my cycling was able to shine through a bit more. I did do some ITU stuff before that with a little bit of success, but my swim was just never quite good enough to be really competitive there. Um, so yeah, and then I've just sort of kept going at it, and I've done I don't know how many 70.3s. I've got 4 wins, 18 podiums. Was supposed to race this past weekend, but it was canceled, which sucked.
Yeah.
But
Nice. Shabbat, right?
yeah, but that's the way it goes. I have three third places this year in three tries, and then last year I finished off with a second in Indian Wells, so that
Yeah.
was pretty good. And then obviously my biggest win was Oceanside 2022.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
opener.
2022, and then at Worlds I've been 70.3 Worlds. I've been fifth and seventh, so those are kind of my main highlights, I would say, and
Yeah.
hoping to improve on those this year. Coming up with a couple big races in August.
Yeah, for sure. So 2017 was your first 70.3, you said. So that's what, 6 years ago. So you're like 23, 22?
Yeah, I would have been. I would have been probably 22 for that. Yeah. Which
So
sounds.
from
Wait a sec. This sounds too young. No, I guess I was. Yeah.
well, so from what I've kind of just observed, it seems about year 10 is when most people are like really hitting the next level in terms of like they've been training for 10 years and like that's where they're kind of starting not peaking, but that's where their performance is like really shining through. So it seems like you've been up and coming continual, and it seems like the by year 10 hopefully you're number one.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I would say that I first started seriously training when I was probably. It was probably about 20. I guess when I finished university is when what I would say started training full time. So that would have been 2014, I think. So it's coming
Okay.
up to 10 years, and I did do quite a bit of Olympic distance at the pro level for before halves. So yeah, I'd say that 10-year mark is kind of coming up pretty soon, and I'm still improving. And I mean, so is everybody else. It's getting really,
Yeah.
really competitive. So it's pretty exciting, and I've been able to kind of keep holding my own, but I've got to kind of have that breakthrough to get on that podium for Worlds and
Yeah.
pick up some big performances. Hopefully at the PTO US Open as well coming up soon.
Yeah. For sure. So I'm curious when because you said you started training seriously, several years back now, but then before that, before you had a coach, what did that training look like for you? Was it just like, oh, I'm gonna allot this many hours and do whatever on the bike and run, swim, or what did that look like in that transform?
Before I went pro or had a coach, well, before I got my first coach ever, when I just did those couple races when I was in high school, my dad and I would just, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we would just go out and train hard every workout. Like we didn't work out very much. We maybe only trained like 8 hours a week, but or less. But we would just go out and go hard the whole time because that's what
Mm.
we. That's what when you come from a sport background like hockey or whatever, like you're trying as hard as you can all the time. It's kind of different. Like you're not really resting and doing those kinds of things. So we would go push ourselves really hard. And then when we first got our coach and he would give us easy runs, we didn't really get it. We are like, what the heck is this? And that's where we
Yeah.
first started learning about building like aerobic base and that. So for a few years there, I would train. I would train like pretty normally in the spring, summer, but I wouldn't really train in the fall, winter much. I might do a couple workouts a week, but
Mm.
mostly I would just yeah. I probably got my workouts in. That's like kind of what allowed me to improve. I would get like 2 good interval sessions of biking, running, and swimming a week. And then I just didn't have much mileage. Like I was only training 8 to 12 hours a week for a few years. And I never really got my mileage up above like 20 hours or 18 hours until I was probably, yeah, until after university. And then I had
Yeah.
time and I was old enough to handle it. And then, yeah, now I'm training, 25 to 30 hours every week pretty much, except for taper weeks, obviously. But yeah, so it kind of evolved slowly. Like never really took like any huge crazy jumps. Just
Yeah.
sort of slowly over time learned to handle more and also shifted away from doing other jobs and stuff when I started being able to make some money from triathlon, which helped
Yeah.
a ton to be able to train more.
What kind of work are you doing outside of triathlon, like I guess during or post college and kind of moving into this profession?
Yeah, the only job I had after university was the running room, like a running store here in Canada.
Nice.
Just worked like it was variable, but for it kind of dwindled off. Like when I first started, I was working like 15 hours, maybe 20, and then um, it eventually got to a point where I was just like actually starting to make money from the sport, and it was basically minimum wage, like maybe a little bit more. But I
Yeah.
was like, literally, if I don't work this job for the whole year and I just have like one more good result, I'm gonna make more money doing that. So, so it just kind of didn't make much sense. I had a human kinetics degree, which is which helped me learn a lot about
Yeah.
athletics and performance in the human body and stuff. But in terms of employment, like you got to kind of get another degree after that if you want to get, a good job in your field. So, and I was
Sure.
like not prepared to do that, and it's too expensive. And I was like, well, let's go for this sport thing and just see what happens there. And I can always go back to school, whenever. You're only young once, and
Yeah.
then you can always go back to school whenever.
Yeah.
When you're 40, who
Do whatever
cares?
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like in that process of becoming and deciding, okay, I'm going to go for this pro thing, specifically even getting your elite card, was that something that you were like, oh, I'm here, I think I can get it relatively easily, or was that like a very concentrated, focused part of the journey to get that?
No, it wasn't that hard. Like in Canada, we don't have like and well, when I got it, there were some standards in terms of like you had to perform within a certain percentage of a winning time at a pro race or something like that.
Hmm.
But then but now they've kind of removed any of those performance standards. Like anyone can kind of just get it. But at
Oh,
that
really?
time, it wasn't that difficult for me to get. Like I was performing pretty well at the age group level, like kind of almost semi-professionally. That wasn't a huge stretch for me. At the short course stuff, like I was already pretty fast,
Hmm.
so it was easy enough to get. But I know it's a little bit different in the USA. It can be a little harder to qualify for sure, especially now that like the pros are going so fast.
It's
That
ridiculous.
makes it
Yeah.
hard to kind of get in there.
Yeah, there's like several different ways. I'm actually trying to do it. And one way is like this seems relatively easier is getting 106 points at two races. But I just did a race like at Blue Ridge and got 12th overall, and it's like 105.9. So I'm hoping to like beg them to round.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways. That's interesting though. Now you said in Canada that you don't have to like do anything super specific. You just kind of go and get it.
No, yeah, you have to get like medical exams and stuff like that to get cleared, which is kind of weird
Yeah,
because it's not like you're doing anything different than the age groupers and they don't have to do
yeah,
that. So, if
yeah,
anything, the age groupers would be more at risk, especially if you're starting later in life or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
But anyway, that it costs a little bit of money, no big deal, and I think it's a $200 a year or something we pay for our
yeah.
Triathlon Canada Elite license, and then
License.
obviously, you got to pay for the Ironman one, but that's a lot cheaper than race entries for age groupers. So the barriers aren't too bad for getting in. But yeah, in Canada, like even though you can get it pretty easily, you don't see a lot of guys doing it or girls that like don't really deserve it.
Hmm.
I think most people know like when they're ready to at least be competitive in the
Yeah,
pro field or try to kind of make your way into one of those groups.
yeah. It's almost more intimidating in some ways because then you're like guessing, oh, am I actually ready? But
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
so it, throughout this journey, I'm sure there've been a lot of ups and downs. In 2019, you had a pretty bad crash. What happened? So tell us a little bit of the story, and then what was that recovery journey like, and maybe it's still going on even.
Yeah, so it was the 70.3 Worlds in Nice, and basically I just was going on the descent. I wasn't like having an amazing race or anything. Not that that's really relevant, but I was kind of in the mix. I think I was in around 20th. And I just, that course, the descent, like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Especially back then when like most people didn't have disc brakes yet. And I think, you know, for me now, I wouldn't go and race a course like that for a championship just because like I'm not willing to take the risks on the descending,
Yeah.
and I'm just not as skilled at it. Like a lot of those guys who are born in Europe and they ride crazy descents with switchbacks and stuff all the time, for them it's
Yeah.
normal. But when you're not used to that, it's a bit sketchy. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just took a turn too fast. It was pretty much a 108. Like it was, you couldn't really see because there was like a wall on the right side, so you couldn't see where the exit of the turn was or how much you had left.
Mm.
And towards the end of the turn, it actually got like more sharp, which is kind of weird. Like here, you don't see that much in North America. The turn like
Yeah.
hits its apex and then it doesn't get any more sharp after that. But anyways, I just released my brakes too early and picked up too much speed. Couldn't stop. Ended up going over the handlebars and hitting a fence post. I hit
Uh,
my shoulder like right here, right at the acromion. Like if you feel like the really kind of hard part of your shoulder there, that was where I hit it. And then it just
mm.
shattered my shoulder blade and my collarbone. And luckily I didn't break
Sheesh.
anything else. But yeah, pretty brutal recovery because it was like I needed to repair 3 areas with metal. And then getting home and
Wow.
stuff was brutal because it's like you can't really support it when your shoulder's totally destroyed like that. Like a sling's not
Yeah.
really gonna do much. So that was tough. And then then, once I got the surgery, recovery went pretty quick. Um, and then I got the one piece of metal out that wasn't going to be permanent. I got that out after about 3 months, a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
And then I improved quickly after that, and I kind of got back, like I was pretty much back to shape 6 months later. The problem was that's when COVID hit. So we did that one race. We got that 70.3 Campeche in Mexico in 2020, right at the start of the year.
Yeah,
And
and then
then that was like the last thing that happened, and then they shut down everything.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was tough. Like financially, it was tough because I was going to race like 5 more races in
Yeah,
2019, and usually I'm consistently getting at least a couple podiums, and so that was a big hit. And then COVID was what it was, and everybody had to deal with that. So that was
yeah,
tough, but yeah, as far as physically, like it's just not, the shoulder's never really going to be the same, but I'm kind of able to manage it. Like
yeah.
luckily I have pretty good mobility, so I have like the mobility that's left is kind of like it's the same that a lot of people have anyway, so it's not that
Mm-hmm.
bad. Obviously I had better mobility before, so that would have been nice, but I'm still able to be competitive in the swim, and I've been struggling. My swimming's been really hit and miss since then.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm not blaming it on the crash or anything, but I've just got to figure my swimming back out. But definitely my fastest swimming was back in like 2016. Um, in terms of pool swimming, but I have been able to still maintain pretty good open water, and I've had some really good swims in 2021 and 2022, and then this year's been a bit off, but I'm kind of revisiting what I was doing in my training and sort of trying to go back to more similar to what I was doing then
yeah,
so that I can kind of take advantage, because obviously, that's what was working. So, I'm kind of on the right path now, I think, and it's important because August with championship races, like you're not going to be on the podium if you're 2 minutes back. So,
yeah.
that's kind of
Do
the
you
goal.
know, did you pick out like specifically what it was that you were doing back in 2016 area in the pool that was attributing to that?
Yeah, well, I think so, but I still have to do it for a while to see. But it's
Yeah.
uh it's basically just more band work for me, like really trying
Oh,
to
really?
remove my kick from the equation. To sort of like, it basically allows my lats to stay more activated, and it keeps my body position higher once I like am
Get
swimming
going.
normally.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got away from that, and then I realized like I was just fighting the water a lot, and I lost a little bit of that body position. So you're pushing yourself through the water more if you're not as high up. So that's kind
Yeah.
of what I've landed on. But I've just started to kind of realize that over the last couple of weeks, and I've got a good training block now before US Open where I can really work on it. And even still, like today I did a swim workout, and I sort of actually finally felt pretty good again, where I actually
Yeah.
feel like I'm not totally inefficient. So obviously there's a long way to go, but I feel like I'm on the right path now. So we'll see. I mean, that's a sport. Like it's a lot
Yeah.
of ups and downs, especially in swimming for me. It's like sometimes it just clicks and sometimes it doesn't, and it's a really constant battle for sure.
Yeah. How many yards or meters are you swimming a week right now?
About 2,500 meters probably, and maybe a little more, but yeah, around that range.
So
Pretty
basically every
average.
day.
Yeah, 6 days a week I'll swim.
Yeah.
Saturdays I take off swimming, and
Same.
more or less off training. I just take a little easy day, but I
Yeah.
try to get weekends to be actual weekends. I know most people can train more on the weekends, but for me it kind of makes sense to train more during the week.
Yeah. So you coach quite a bit as well. I know you've got several elites and upcoming, or several athletes and several elite up and coming athletes. In your training style or your coaching style, do you encourage a day off once per week? Or you kind of like just one day, super easy, whatever you want to do, or how does that look?
I actually don't coach anymore. I was coaching
Oh, really?
for
Yeah.
like 3 years, and I just recently moved away from it just for time reasons, like to be able to
Yeah.
focus more on training. And I kind of miss it, but I don't even know how I had time for it now that I am not doing it.
Yeah.
But I would. It depends on the person, but one day a week off is great, for a lot of people, just to have that mental break.
Yeah.
Um, and then 2 days, whether you take a day fully off or not, I think you need 2 days a week that are very chill.
Yeah.
recovery days because it's just too much to try to train hard 6 days a week.
Yeah.
But people do different things. I like to spread those days out. So I take my easy days Wednesdays and Saturdays, and then some people like to try to put two easy days together and then 5 hard days in a row. Uh,
Oof.
yeah, that's tough. I don't think too many people are doing that anymore, but one thing that I do that's probably a little bit different than a lot of pros is my easy days are like really easy. It's not really even training, I wouldn't call it. It's more active recovery. So it's like 100 watts on the bike, like that 120 watts, something ridiculous, like a third of
Like
my
super.
FTP. Yeah, like you're not training, you're just moving your body, and like you can go a little bit more than that if you're feeling okay, but I think it's super important to not try to think of it as training, because if you're doing that, you're pushing a little bit and you're just not getting the recovery. And then for me, I never run on a rest day. So the 2 days a week that I don't run are my recovery days.
Okay.
So
Just on the body.
yeah, in my opinion, to go easy enough, you end up running so slow that like it's just it's not even worth it really. You're better off biking, like because I do most of my base running at like, I don't know, 7:30, 7:45 mile pace, which is still pretty slow, but that's not that low of a heart rate if you were to look at it, because running is just so much harder on your body than
Yeah.
anything else. Like if I'm spinning on the trainer super chill, my heart rate might be like 100, maybe even less. But running, it's kind of hard to keep it anything under 120.
Yeah.
Um, so it's
Unless you're
just,
walking.
yeah, basically, or going crazy
Walking.
slow. But
Interesting. Okay, cool. That may influence my coaching philosophy, so I appreciate that.
no problem.
So going back to the crash real quick, I had a quick question because I know for maybe the top 10 in the world, I would assume, or maybe even the top 25, which I guess you're number 25 in the world now, according to PTO, you do have opportunities to maybe have enough cash to, like, if you do have a crash, you're going to have the insurance, at least the funds to take care of that. Whenever you had that crash in 2019 and the surgeries involved, did you have insurance? If that's your personal question, and did this your sponsors, anyone kind of help put some money toward that? Because I know that probably wasn't cheap.
Yeah, I was able to get most of it covered with insurance.
Mhm.
So that was great, but it took forever. Like it took like 6 months or what more.
Oh yeah, because
Um,
Canada, you guys have what is it
free
called?
healthcare.
Universal healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was all pretty much free. The main cost was like the actual flights to get home, because I came home like the next day
Yep.
because they said they couldn't really operate on it there. They didn't know what to do basically. It was pretty
My
complicated.
word.
Like I had to
Yeah.
get referred to a lot of like specialists to find the
Specialists.
right person to know what to do. Um, so anyway, the flights were expensive and it was me and my wife, so both of us. And then that was the main cost. A little bit of cost at the hospital in France, but that was like kind of crazy how cheap it was. It was like 500 US or less for like CAT scan and
Maybe
excuse me,
Europe.
MRI, and no, I think it was MRI. I can't remember. It was X-ray and one other one. And then all the stitches and everything like that too.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
but yeah, no, it wasn't it didn't end up costing me too much in the end, except for the lost income. So that was the tough part.
yeah, for sure. Um, I want to talk a little bit about identity. So, are you familiar with Greg Bennett? You know who that is?
Yeah.
I assume you probably do. So I was talking to him and a while back and just asking different questions. And one topic of conversation we got on was how around a lot of elite athletes, Olympians, what have you, after they kind of reach that pinnacle, say 39, 40, whatever, the sport days kind of are coming to an end, whenever they have to like make a choice to step back into like a different part of the world, their life and everything that they've been a part of for the past 20, 30 years has been just so completely wrapped up in sport that their identity was like that was who they were and they weren't sure how to like transfer. So my question to you is, and you're still young, I mean you have quite a bit ahead of you, do you feel like that your identity is in a good place with what you're doing, and do you completely identify with Jackson Laundry the triathlete, or do you have like other parts of your life where you feel like, well, I could transfer to that, or I can be that person, or
Yeah. Interesting question. I haven't like thought too much about after triathlon until recently. Like I've started kind of thinking about it more now that I'm like turning 30, and I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people retire in their 30s, from triathlon, that is, not from regular stuff.
Yeah.
um, but I don't think I'm gonna have any problem moving on, because it's, as much as I love the sport, I also love other things in life that I don't get to do that much. So just I don't spend as much time with family or friends as I'd like to, and I don't
Yeah.
do other fun sport. Like I said, as a kid, I'm always doing sports and like everything, like anything I can do, but I can't just go and play around a golf or do like
Yeah.
whatever I want all the time, because you're recovering and you're training, and like it's not gonna help you. And I'm trying to be the best I can be, and I'm taking it seriously to the point where I'm willing to give those things up, but
Right.
not forever. So I don't. I always want to be involved with the sport. I think I'll probably be a coach beyond when I'm done racing. I'll definitely try to still continue coaching, and maybe even doing some other things involved with sport, like announcing or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of as much as I'm not like in a hurry, I'm almost looking forward to also having other things that I can just do more, and hopefully, if I'm successful in my career and I can be a successful coach after, I can have a little bit of freedom to where I could do things I want and go to
Yeah.
places I want and things like that, and that would be great.
Sure.
But obviously, I need to continue improving the sport and sort of build up what I'm able to accomplish in order to be able to do that. So yeah, I think I have a pretty good idea of where I'll be after, but like, there's some people who train because they love training, and there's some people who like train because they love racing, and then there's a mix. And I would definitely say I'm more towards, like, I love racing and I like training, but if there was no racing, I would not train nearly as much as I do. Like, I would,
Sure.
I'd run and maybe bike and here and there, but I would,
For fun.
yeah, I'd go do weights and I'd do other stuff and sports, and kind of just keep it a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, for sure. Good answer. So, what is it that you, I guess, from a income-driven standpoint, you mentioned maybe announcing and coaching, but is there any other like area, or would you consider yourself more entrepreneurial and you want to start something, or?
I don't know if I'd want to start a business outside of like coaching,
Hmm.
just because anything like product related is just so hard and competitive, and it's just, there's a lot of things going on that I don't fully understand. Like, I totally respect anyone who goes for that, but it's tough.
Sure.
Like, you see how many uh, cycling apparel or triathlon apparel companies that go out of business, and
Hmm.
even bike companies. It's just really hard to make it as that, and I'm just not really interested in that. I'm more interested in like the interpersonal kind of, coaching, or even like speaking and sort of, or consulting, things like that, where I can actually have a conversation with someone and
Yeah.
try to
Add
help get
value
the
that way.
best out of that person, using what I've learned, but also what research shows works for people, or what different things work for different personalities or different strengths and weaknesses. And I'm still learning all those things now, and I think by the time my career's done in training, I'll have learned a lot that I can hopefully help me to, help others.
Yeah. Do you want to train mostly elite athletes or all elite athletes, or do you want to do a mixture, or?
I'll probably do, well, we'll see. I mean, I like training elite athletes, but part of the, bottom line is there's not that many of them. So I don't think I'd be exclusive to elites. I really like training age group athletes too, because, especially because there's a
Right.
lot of room on the table to improve, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
And it feels like, the things I've learned, like an age group athlete, especially a newer one, has just so much to still learn that you can help them a
Yeah.
lot. Like with an elite, it can be tough and it's a great challenge, but I think I'd like to probably have a balance of both. But we'll see. It'd also be nice to do some in-person coaching. I know most stuff's online now,
Yeah.
and I'd like to kind of see if there's a way I can do some in-person stuff, because I really think that's kind of
Yeah.
the way to get that next level of improvement out of the athletes.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I first started, well, actually, before I started being coached, who is now my coach, I got invited to some track workouts, and is he spent a little time, so like let me ask him questions and stuff. The motivation, especially when I knew he was going to be at the track workout, is even when I started being coached by him, was always a little bit higher, and I think I always dug a little bit deeper to show him up. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun stuff. So recently you released a video about your, I guess, FTP journey over the past 10 years. For those who may not know what FTP is, functional threshold power on the bike. It's a measure to train by in percentages. So you were talking about like these specific key workouts that you do on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Kind of a few examples maybe of what those are and like even like percentage wise, like how often, how frequent, what are your thoughts on that?
For sure. So I don't repeat like the same workout very often. Probably the most common one I've done over the last couple of years is because I'm doing most of my training on the trainer now for it, just doing Zwift,
But
because I kind of found that you can just get better quality in, and then it's riding outside. At least where I live, it's pretty stressful. Like there's a lot of like it's just not that safe. Like there's
cars,
not a lot of bike lanes. The car is too busy. And you're just I don't know. It's just not worth it to me anymore to do that all that often.
yeah,
So I've been doing a lot of stuff on Zwift. The kind of one of the key ones I've been doing that's, I guess, pretty unstructured, but really fun. Maybe I'll do this like once a month at most. Is like I'll do a Zwift race that's like about 30K, with something hilly, but not like a crazy climb. Just like something with some hills where you're spiking the effort, and then some spots where you're drafting and chilling.
hmm
And like going hard, but not like all out. I would say like keep it a really good effort, but leave. It's still training. Like you're not trying to kill yourself.
yeah,
And then I take a break, 20, 30 minutes, just spin, get some calories in, and sort of recover. And then I'll go to the Alp to Zwift and do a rep up that, just like between 75 and 85% of FTP, depending how I'm feeling. Like sometimes you're pretty crushed from that race and you don't have much left, so you're
yeah,
just like holding what you can. You might not even be
hmm
able to do 75%, maybe 70%. And for some people, that's going to be too long. Because, for me, it's like 50 minutes or less. But for a lot of people, it might be like an hour and 20 minutes. So it's like, that's too long. Maybe go do the Epic KOM instead, where it's like 25, 30 minutes.
yeah,
But in any case, doing that, and it's like really good endurance builder where you're trying to hold good power after, a really hard effort with a lot of variability. And then for on the way up the Alp, just to make it interesting, I try to alternate like each switchback. I'll do like aero, like stay in the
oh
aero
well,
bars and go normal. And then for the next switchback, I'll do just like seated climb, like low cadence. And that kind of, if anything, it just breaks it up mentally and helps you kind of get through it and work a little bit on that strength. So that's a fun one. But it's not necessarily like the Zwift race. You're going to be going over FTP and then over under. So it's kind of an over under
yeah,
workout. And then the
hmm
other one's more endurance. Like that really is just general, probably more of a 70.3 specific aspect to it.
sure,
But when it comes to like really pushing the high end, trying to get the FTP up, another one that I'll do is like you can do this either on Zwift or outside. Like I've done it outside a bunch around here, where I'll pick a route that's like a 3 hour ride or 2.5 or whatever, and it has three or four like pretty good climbs on it that are between like 1 and 4 minutes.
hmm
And I'll do each climb like 3 times, and I'll do them like really hard, like 110, 115% FTP, maybe even 120 if it's a short one. And I'll do each 3 times really hard. And that's pretty much the set, is like how much, for me, it's like how much time can I spend above 400 watts. So obviously for other people it would be whatever number, but you're trying to spend time
sure,
quite a bit above threshold. And then you end up at the end, once you've done all the hills 3 times each or four or whatever you choose to do, you add it up and you're like, oh, I've spent quite a bit of time like way above threshold. And it's not as hard as just doing like as doing kind of a, like mentally it's easier than doing like a structured interval set, because the hill helps you produce the power, and then also like where the finish line of the hill is. You're
yeah.
kind of like, it's just a little bit
It's
easier
a
when you're
different mental
doing
game.
it that way. But obviously a lot of it is just intervals. Like, you know. I'll do a lot of drop down stuff. So sometimes it'll be like I think the workout I have today is like 6 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, like at 90%, and then 1 minute at 115%, and then 4 minutes rest. And then I do that a bunch of times. So part of it, so that's like a good one for pushing above threshold when you're already fatigued from that other interval. But yeah, really, if you want to get your threshold high, you do have to just spend time above threshold and doing the basic like 10 by 3 minutes hard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I try not to focus too much like on that specific number, because a lot of people have different philosophies. Like some people will do like, oh, I'm going to do a VO2 block where all I do is VO2 work. Then all I'm going to do is threshold. Then all I'm going to do is tempo. And I don't believe in that personally at all. I think, you know, maybe the science shows that kind of works well, but it's also just easier to measure when you're doing the same workout for that long. Like how it's easier to quantify any improvements. I think a mix of all types of intervals kind of throughout your training with a bias towards higher intensity, you know, far in advance of your race. And then as you approach your race, the intensity's on average coming down sort of towards race pace. But this doesn't mean you're doing no VO2 work in the last month of before your race. Like you're still mixing it up. And then also just for staying motivated, like I don't understand how some people go and do like the same workout for a month. Like I could not. And especially mentally, because you're always going to think, oh, I got to do better than I did last time. I got to do better than I did. And that's not always possible. Like you're going to be tired, or like you can't improve every single workout. So, yeah, for me, those are the things that work. And just training with friends, like making it fun. It's huge just to stay motivated and push yourself. And, you know, I probably ride 10, 11 hours a week. And that's kind of a good sweet spot for me. But obviously most people can't do that much. But if you're doing 2 good workouts a week, that's pretty much, you know, the bread and butter. And then beyond that, it's sort of like if you can get more mileage in here and there, that's great. But those two solid bike workouts is the main thing to keep improving, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing. I actually wrote some of that down too. Cool. Is there anything right now that you're studying or learning about within the sport that you find interesting and worth sharing?
That I'm studying?
Yeah, or like maybe diving a little bit more into some up and coming science. I don't know.
Yeah, there's always little things like nutrition wise, it seems like people are starting to push the amount of carbs that they're taking in even more. There's
something.
Yeah, there's some research. Like the only kind of research I saw was in ultra runners, and if you were able to take 120 grams of carbs an hour, it reduced muscle damage significantly, like compared to 90 or 60 or 30 grams an hour. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily applicable to triathlon or not. Maybe for Ironman, full distance. Yeah. For half distance, not sure if there'd be a performance benefit there, or if it'd be even possible to absorb 120 grams an hour, because your intensity is a little bit higher, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm kind of making sure I'm aware of and following. If I do a full later this year, I'm probably going to start trying in my training to push the carbs a little bit more, see if I can get over 100 grams. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess the other piece is nutrition. Like, people have been taking ketones for like a few years now. It seems like performance-wise, there's no benefit. Like, if anything, it doesn't help performance to take it during or before, but it might help with recovery. So there was a study where they looked at your body's production of EPO after training, because after you train, your body produces EPO to repair your red blood cells. Right. And if you took ketones, it seemed to help produce more EPO, therefore maybe more red blood cells, but it's pretty preliminary. It was like one study. But I have been taking ketones as recovery, like after hard sessions, along with protein and carbs, obviously.
But you have or you have not?
Yeah, I have.
You have.
But I'm sponsored by the feed, so I obviously get that stuff all free. But I did a really good. I don't know if it's out yet, but my nutrition club has a really good talk where I talk to the nutrition experts at the feed about all the different aspects of nutrition and what things work and what things don't, or when things might work or not. So if you want to check that out in more detail, that's on my nutrition club. I'll send you the link.
The Snack Squad Nutrition Club?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually
For
up
sure.
yet. I'm kind of because it was recorded a while ago, and then I just can't remember if she put it up yet. But either way, it'll be up. If it's not, then I'll follow up and make sure it goes up soon.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
But yeah,
signing up
that's
right now.
perfect. So the other thing is kind of interesting is this new Morton bicarbonate stuff. Bicarbonate's been around forever. It helps buffer lactate, so it basically helps you produce more anaerobic power. So
Hmm.
any kind of intervals, it'll be more. Any kind of efforts above threshold or around threshold, it'll help. Um, that being said, it usually causes GI issues. So Morton found this way to kind of encapsulate it where it'll pass through your stomach before you absorb it. So it theoretically won't cause GI issues as much. Um, so I have tried it and I felt like it worked for sure. The problem is I think it affects the amount of nutrition you're able to take in because it has a ton of sodium. Like one
Yeah.
serving of their like the stronger version has 6 grams of sodium. So
My
6,000
lord.
6,000 milligrams because
Diabetes in a heartbeat.
well, maybe high blood pressure, but 6,000 milligrams because it's the product that you're taking is sodium bicarbonate. To get the bicarbonate, it's already bound to sodium, so it has to be there.
Right.
So I think, yeah, I mean, I think maybe for short course or for things that are like for just workouts, like maybe just a hard bike workout now and then or something, it could be good. But for a race where you need to take in a lot of calories and a lot of fluids, and you don't want your sodium balance to be off, it's probably
I
not
don't think
worth it.
that.
Um, I tried it in a bike workout and I felt really good, but I could tell that like I was kind of bloated and I wouldn't want to take in as much nutrition, and I was
Hmm.
super thirsty from all the sodium, so I was just drinking straight water, not sport drink. Um,
Interesting.
so kind of something to think about, but some people would be fine. Like it also depends on how much sodium you need because I don't need a lot of sodium because my sodium rate isn't that much when I sweat. But if some people have a really high sweat sodium, well, maybe they can take this Morton stuff and they're already taking a lot of sodium anyway, so it's possibly better for them. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting new thing, but I wouldn't say it's like a big game changer for long course. Some short course guys are doing it. Apparently, a lot of them are with success because if you don't have to take much in during the race, it's
Yeah,
probably
like Olympic distance or shorter, you
yeah,
mean?
Olympic or sprint. Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because I was just looking it up. It looks like there's multiple products, the different systems, and how you would apply
yeah,
it.
it comes all together, and it's just like you only actually eat the one thing, but it's like, oh, you put this in here, and then it sort of turns into a gel, and then you put the bicarb in it, and then you swallow that. Like you don't chew the bicarbonate pills, you just kind of swallow them. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting new thing, but nothing. I don't think anything's really changing.
Yeah.
People are just getting better. Like obviously, equipment keeps getting a little bit better, and positions
Right.
and aerodynamics. The shoes now are really fast,
Hmm.
so that makes a difference.
What are you running in for your races now?
This year I've been using the new Vaporfly Next% threes.
You like them?
So, yeah, so those are good. Um, they're like all these new super shoes are kind of they load your legs a little bit differently, which in the past I haven't trained in them enough, but this year I started to. After my first 2 or 3 races, I realized like my form was kind of falling apart because my legs weren't used to the way that those shoes were.
Hmm.
So I've started training more in them, and then I got used to it, and then I thought, okay, this is gonna really help my run in the later stages. And then I didn't get to race to test it out last weekend, so
Yeah. Sucks.
still still gonna be able to continue to do that. Like one workout a week. I think that's pretty
Like
important,
a
is to
track
not just do
session type
all
deal.
your runs. Yeah, I don't really do track workouts, but yeah, workout, whatever it is, your intervals, do maybe one of your workouts a week in them. Otherwise, I don't think running them too much. Um, because yeah, they sort of they take a load off of certain parts of your legs and add it to others, and I think also they're super expensive, so it doesn't really make sense to run all your mileage in them and then you're going and
Yeah,
they don't last that long either.
like 100 miles or something.
Yeah, they're not super durable, so I think there's a balance there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a shoe sponsor right now?
Nope, I
No.
think I'm the only pro in the world who pays full price for all my shoes.
Is it just because no one's reached out, or how does that typically work? Someone has to reach out before you can make that kind of a thing happen?
Yeah, you can. There's different ways. Like you can reach out to sponsors and just say that you're interested, and then see if they're interested or not. But a lot of times, sponsors
Sure.
will reach out to you. And the thing with shoes and stuff is I kind of want to be able to wear whatever I feel is the best.
Yeah.
So, if whatever certain companies reached out, I'd be like, well, I don't know about using them because I think the Nikes are the fastest. Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of just, more for performance reasons than anything.
Yeah, for sure. So, how do you think endurance sport has changed the way that you think on more of like a philosophical level?
Well, if
Or
anything,
has
like you just kind of feel super fortunate to be able to do this. Like, it's kind of crazy if you think about sort of how people from other countries are just trying to survive. Like, there's that, and then
hmm
there's also only until super recently in human history have we been able to do these like leisure activities, um, right? Because the world has gotten to a place where it's easy enough to survive that we can do things for fun like this, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like really lucky that we're alive at this time, honestly.
Mm.
And who knows how long it'll stay like that for? So you just enjoy it, and like also, a friend of mine mentioned to me the other day that like I think it was Cody. I was Cody Beals. How every time you get to race, it's like a celebration of your health in a sense. It's like
Mm.
you're pushing yourself, and you're able to do these amazing things physically and test yourself, and like you don't know if you're always going to be healthy. Tons of people who aren't healthy enough or ever able to do something like that. So
Right.
it's a really cool opportunity, and like while I'm young and while I'm able to train and see what I could do, it's kind of like I got to do it. I don't have a choice. Like I'd
Yeah.
regret it if I didn't. But yeah, it just kind of makes me feel super lucky. But that's definitely something I didn't think too much about, 10 years ago. And I don't know if it's the sport itself or just kind of getting older and realizing that,
Sure.
the, that I'm pretty lucky. It's not just like everybody has these opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answer. How often do you train with Cody? Do you guys live in the same-ish area?
Yeah. Yeah. We live really close by. We train together at least a few times a week, typically.
Okay.
Probably, usually two swim workouts or three, and then one or two bikes and runs as well. We're doing a lot of our harder training together, so that's been good. And Taylor Reed as well. And then there's a couple younger guys around who are kind of their age group athletes looking to hopefully move up to pro pretty soon. And so we got a nice group here.
That's
Um,
sweet.
and then yeah, I'll train with like the RTS group when we're in the same area, but typically, we kind of just meet up for races and maybe a training camp here and there.
Yeah. What's RTS stand for?
The Real Triathlon Squad.
Okay. Got
So there's a group of 8 of us pros, and um, we just kind of have a group similar sponsors, and there's we've had a really good year. Tamara's been doing awesome.
it.
I've had a few podiums. Mark Dubrick just won Alcatraz,
Yeah, I saw
which is
that.
really sweet, and then yeah, everybody else has been having good days as well and representing super well. And we'll see what happened. We were gonna have like 4 or 5 of us racing at Tremblant, so that would have been fun. But
Yeah.
we'll see for next. I think some of the guys are doing Oregon, and we've got at least 2 of us in for U.S. Open, and then hopefully Mark as well. So that'll be a good one. Where that's kind of the start of championship season in my mind because I didn't do
Yeah.
European Open or Um, I don't think I'll be doing the Asian Open either. So U.S. Open's kind of my only
Big
PTO
race.
big race
Yeah.
of the year, and then I'll do the 70.3 Worlds, which will be
Right.
kind of the A race.
For the PTO, do you feel like they're doing a good job? Is there anything
Yeah,
to
I mean
change?
they're doing what they can. Um, I think they're obviously like at this point they've spent a ton of money on the athletes and like they need to start
Yeah.
seeing that return, and that's what they're trying to do with putting these big races up where they're trying to get the same kind of big names out to them so that people
Follow it.
who don't know the sport can start to follow it and learn the characters and sort of like become a fan. And that's
Yeah.
I think that's where people struggle with the PTO. It's kind of like, oh, well, this isn't how triathlon works, and these kind of different criticisms that I think are valid, but they also need to be thinking in terms of
The
um,
business.
changing how the sport is, because if we want it to become a spectator sport, we need it to be fun to watch for people who don't really know triathlon, and that's kind of why they're
Yeah.
sticking to the 100K distance because it's only like 3 hours and it's reasonable. Like if you're sitting and watching, let's say it's 3.5 hours, so well, that's not that much longer than like a football game or whatever else. So
Or a
people
long
might
movie
actually,
nowadays. Yeah.
yeah. So people have the time. Whereas if you're doing full distance, like no one's going to become a fan of that because they're not going to be able
Yeah.
to watch it and understand it.
Yeah. For sure. Last couple of questions here to kind of wrap it up a little bit. It has to do with coaching. Um, you have been with your same coach. You said his name's Jason, is that right?
No,
No,
James.
James. You've been with James for 10 years. A lot of athletes I know typically cycle through coaches, not always. Um, but what has that journey been like? Has there been ups and downs? Have you almost left? Have you ever considered anything more than just him, or you really like him and
Um, it's been pretty smooth, really. I mean, you obviously every once in a while you have a disagreement on how things should be, but not very much.
yeah,
Um, and I think like definitely the training and his sort of coaching philosophies and whatnot have changed over time as I've changed as an athlete. So it's kind of it's evolved as I've improved, and it has had to because the training that worked for me at one time starts, you have to kind of adjust it as you get older and faster, or as your
hmm
recovery changes, a bunch of different things. I have not seriously considered changing coaches because I've improved pretty much
yeah,
constantly. The only thing that's been like not a constant improvement is my swimming, which has been pretty understandable seeing as I
you
basically,
wrecked.
yeah, crushed my shoulder. So that's really where things started to become tough. But yeah, I can't see going like in terms of the programming, the structure of the workouts, and the balancing of the training loads. I can't see anybody else being better for me. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just been working really well. So I know there's a lot of other coaches that have like more credentials with pro athletes and stuff, but
Sure.
um, it's just I've never really seen any other coaching that's been like, ooh, what these guys are doing seems amazing. It's usually been sort of like, well, I think what I'm doing is better for me than what they're doing, so why would I
hmm
change? And like
Right.
sort of like all this, testing and all this lactate stuff, I think that's all garbage. Like I don't think it really I don't I really I
Thanks for
do.
honest.
I think it's like it could be fine to test here and there, but to base all your training around it, I don't agree with. And I've seen it. Like I've seen people go and oh, I'm going to do all this lactate stuff now, and then they get worse because you're obsessed with this number and you don't care about the output.
Yeah.
And all that really matters is how hard you can go. And it could be a good learning thing, but it's also super hard to do like on your own. It's really hard to do properly.
Yeah.
The machines aren't completely accurate. Like they can be off, and so there's all these reasons why it's like I'll mess around with all these things or just train hard and like maybe measure it here and there just to see, oh, is the training working? And like, okay, here's this zone. We'll maybe add a little bit more of that zone, but to test it almost every workout, like a lot of people are doing, seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if like I also don't really trust that that's what the Norwegians are basing everything off of. I think they're kind of
Yeah.
putting these little smoke bombs out there to let people go chase after them. And
It's gonna be smart.
and they have a whole lab dedicated to them, basically. Like,
Yeah.
if they're gonna do it, they're gonna be able to do it right. Whereas
Yeah.
people are gonna try and do it on their own, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
probably it'll get messed up more often than not, and you're just kind of wasting money and time. But
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
saying
not
it doesn't
cheap
work
either.
for anyone. But yeah, the strips themselves are a couple bucks each, are they not?
Yeah, they're like $3 each, and then the machine's 4 or 5 if you want a good one. And then yeah, like you said, it's messy and you gotta do it right.
And then it's like you're pricking your ear. It's like, are you gonna get an ear infection? I don't know. Like, it's just all these
Yeah.
things. I'm just like, nah,
Yeah.
not for
Yeah. It's
me. I mean,
primitive.
for some people, maybe I think it can work, but I would rather not mess with it. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of people who are doing really, really well who don't mess with that. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
I'll look back 10 years from now and I'll be like, man, if I just did lactate, I could have been a world champion. But I think I'm on the right path for that,
Yeah, for
especially
sure. I
with the
would say.
improvement that I've been having.
Yeah.
But there are some things that definitely work, and for me, one of them is altitude. So I'll be doing an altitude camp before Worlds and trying to
Nice.
get that benefit because it helps with my swimming a lot, and that's what I need help with, basically.
Yeah, you gotta get out the water quick. Where are you doing your altitude camp?
I'm probably going to be going to Font Romeu in France. Doing some
Nice.
training with Joe Skipper there.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be good, and hopefully Mark Duber can come too, and then we'll have
Yeah.
a good little group there, um, and then that helps me also with kind of getting most of the travel done. So I like go over there after US Open, then I'm already most of the way to Finland. Like, it's not a crazy time change after that.
Yeah.
Because that can be tough trying to get a time change a week before the race when you're 7 hours
Yeah.
difference. That's as hard of a transition as anything. So might as well get that
Yeah.
over with 3 weeks before.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Cool, man. I do want to ask one more question, just to kind of finish up. It's a bit more of a heavy one, uh, but it has to do with what happened with Colin and how that kind of came to light. I saw your video that was pretty in depth of like just you talking about it, and then I guess recently Lionel said one of his videos that he was getting one or two tests outside of competition where he saw them come in. He was happy to see that. Have you been seeing a similar trend where more tests have started coming in now, and do you know who's sponsoring them and how it's working?
I haven't seen any increase. I've been on whereabouts for a couple, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and I've always been tested like a decent amount out of competition, but not as much as I would like. Like, I mean, obviously getting tested's annoying, but it's like a good annoyance. It's like, okay, good,
Yeah,
they're testing me and they're testing people.
yeah,
But I didn't see any change. I actually don't think I've been tested at all since the Colin thing. Um, Not out of competition anyway. They did change sort of they made everyone get tested before St. George. Like, there was this dry blood spot testing that everyone had to do in order to get your race package,
oh
which was
well,
kind of interesting. I don't know if you're ever. No one's going to show up to a race with drugs in their system if they're a cheater. Like, they're just not.
yeah,
They're just not that stupid. But
yeah. So it seems kind of a
um,
wash, you think?
yeah, I don't know. It does seem like they're at least trying to show that they're putting more of an effort in. Most of the tests are sponsored by Ironman. Like, Ironman is who pays for the whereabouts for me. I know that, but I haven't seen much stuff the PTO is doing for drug testing. I don't know if that's changed, but I don't think they had any out of competition testing going on, which is not great considering they're
They want to be the
investing the
biggest.
most in
Yeah,
triathlon. You'd want to see them doing it, so hopefully they've kind of started to implement some of that. But yeah, I haven't seen a huge amount of change, and I don't know if, like, I don't know what's going on with that, whether they're still investigating something or not. But hopefully, I mean, and the other thing is we don't really know if what all this stuff he said is true or not, so it's kind of hard
yeah,
to make any judgments. But at least they caught him, and he seems to be off doing other things, and hopefully finding a better purpose for what he's doing in life. But yeah, I think there's definitely more guys doing it, and hopefully they can catch them. But we'll see. I mean, it's not been very much. It's not been very often we've seen long course athletes caught,
yeah,
and hopefully that means that not many people are cheating. But more likely it means that people who are cheating are better at avoiding the test and getting. So we'll see. I mean, if they can just increase the testing, it becomes harder to avoid, and the
Yeah.
people probably won't be. They still probably won't get caught, but they're probably going to have to cheat less in order to not get caught. So that would at least be a good thing.
I don't want to hold you as this being a fact or anything, but when it comes to like if you were to say a percentage of the pro field as we know it is doing it, do you have any inclination?
I have no idea really. I would guess less than 10% just because of how expensive it probably is, like
Hmm.
and hard and whatever. But hopefully less than 10%. Hopefully like less than 5%. But I don't really know. I would guess between 5 and 10%, but who knows? Yeah. Hopefully less. Hopefully everybody who's ever done it has gotten caught, but we know that that's not the case from seeing cycling and everything. So
Yeah.
um, time will tell. Hopefully the tests keep getting better, and they can actually kind of catch people more frequently, or at least discourage it a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I'll put the title of this. Jackson Laundry says 10% of all elites are cheating. No.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, no, I won't do that. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time just to share a little bit about your journey, and it'll be fun to track you for the rest of the year. And yeah, it's just an awesome pleasure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for having me, and good luck getting your pro card. And
Thanks, man.
we'll see you around.
Cool. Thanks for listening to this podcast. It was a really fun time to get to hang out with Jackson a little bit and hear about his methods of madness within this sport. Hear some of his opinions on doping and about the professional and triathlete organization as a whole, and just some of his stories from his crash to just what he's been going through lately. So, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.